Aging is one of those funny things that we all handle differently as we get older. When we're kids, we can't wait to get older. In fact, you're so excited about aging that you'll talk in fractions. When someone asks you how old you weren't 8, you were 8.5. You were never 17. You were always almost 18. And then you get to turn the big 2-1. And after that, for a lot of us, it feels like it's downhill from there in our minds. For some of us, we're really excited about our next birthday, year after year. For others of us, going into our 30s, 40s, 50s, and so on is a scary idea. For each of us, aging affects us in different ways. If you're like me, you love getting older. I think the older you are, the more durable and tough a person is, the longer you've made it, and the more you've accomplished. That's why I would never want to be 21 again, or even 30. I love who I am right now and who I'm becoming. For others of us, getting older means wrinkles, aches and pains, and not being able to do the same things that we once were able to. It might even mean weight gain or hair loss, who knows? Age means something different to each one of us, and it's the meaning that we put on age that can affect us positively in our marriage or negatively. Are we getting older and more established? Or are our best days behind us? Are the changes that we see in each other bringing us closer together, or are they pushing us further apart? In the book 30 Lessons for Living, author Carl Pillemer conducted interviews with over 1,000 older Americans from all walks of life, asking them what the meaning of life was. In a summary written by Jane Brody about Mr. Pillemer's book, older Americans had this to say about marriage. A satisfying marriage that lasts a lifetime is more likely to result when partners are fundamentally similar and share the same basic values and goals. Although romantic love initially brings most couples together, what keeps them together is an abiding friendship, an ability to communicate, a willingness to give and take, a commitment to the institution of marriage, as well as to each other. I hope that when you're married, you embrace getting older. You can't change the fact that with each passing day, you are in fact aging, but you can decide as a couple to celebrate it like no one else.
The Bible verse is from Matthew, where Jesus talks about the greatest commandment is to love your Lord your God with all your heart, mind, and soul, and then to love your neighbor as yourself. And I'd like to remind you that your nearest neighbor for the rest of your life will be your spouse. Okay? And then your children. And then people. Okay? So, the reason I included this is because I think a lot of times when we get married, and I know when I was dating my wife, it never occurred to me that when we vowed to be together the rest of our lives, I mean, of course I knew the fact was that we would be aging together, but I hadn't really thought about it. And I love this graphic because it shows, you know, from a toddler to a little girl and on through, and then, you know, you get to be, in this case it's an older woman, or it can be an older man. But have you ever looked at pictures of in the newspaper of couples who are their 25th or their wedding photo and then their 50th? You notice how much some of them have changed? I mean, a lot of times you wouldn't recognize that person, you know? And so we change physically, and you know, and hopefully we change also emotionally and spiritually and intellectually, and that we continue growing all through our life together, and that one partner doesn't grow at the expense of the other. If one partner gets an opportunity to go back to school or to achieve some dream, then that partner is wanting to do the same for his or her spouse.
Unconditional support of one another in your relationship can't be overstated. There are going to be times in your marriage that one of you feels compelled to follow a dream, or to advance your career, or maybe to do something completely different than what you're currently doing. And it's going to require the support and love of your spouse in order for you to be able to accomplish it. When these times happen, the more that you both can be open-minded and open to the possibility of supporting the change, the more that you're going to build trust and confidence in your relationship. Remember that a satisfying marriage that lasts a lifetime is an abiding friendship, an ability to communicate, a willingness to give and take, and a commitment to your marriage as well as to each other.
In that journey that we call marriage, we talked a lot about the importance of communication and managing conflict, but there also has to be a very willing acceptance of my partner's aging process, right? So I weigh about 60 more pounds than I did when I got married, and I have about 80% less hair. Okay, not a good break, right? My wife she has never ceased to affirm who I am, or to say, "Oh man, you really look nice. That looks nice," you know. And I'll look and I'll think, "Oh God, you know, my hair is so thin and fine that if I shower and then I walk up the stairs, the wind is so bad that my hair is all over the place." Life is continually throwing curves at us. And as a result, our faith gets tested. Sometimes our relationship gets tested. I have some really dear friends who were in seminary with me, and one of them, after they were married, he had a brain aneurysm. They got through that. And then she had a double mastectomy. And she told me one time, she said, "You know, when I was going to show my husband the scars after my mastectomy," she said, "my body image it had never been lower." She said, "I couldn't imagine myself to be attractive in any way." And she said, "I was really concerned about how he would react to me." And she said, "You know, he was so loving and supportive and so telling me that he loved me, and that if certain things weren't there, that didn't impact his love for me or his desire for me." You just never know what life is going to throw at you, and so it's important that you knit together this relationship that's getting deeper and deeper and more connected all the time. So let's say if one of your children gets sick. Like right now, I'm working with a couple, and their little boy not only has Down syndrome, but he's had to have open heart surgery, and he'll probably have to have it again. And the strain of that on a marriage. The other thing is, when you have children, one of the great causes of divorce is when a couple has their first child, because things change so much. You know, you're thinking about this baby coming, and everybody's so excited, and the baby comes, and then you've got to figure that you're in a whole new life situation. I mean, that child changes everything. I know, like when I was married and we had our kids, who do you think got up with those kids when they started crying in the middle of the night? Take a guess. My wife. I'd just snuggle in under the blanket a little more. Right? Was that fair? Absolutely not. What I've loved about Zach and Kate when they had Claire, when Kate gets up in the middle of the night, Zach gets up with her.
As your marriage gets more established and you start having kids, a principle of fairness becomes more and more important. Setting yourself up for success as you get older requires you to plan for the future and establish behaviors in the beginning of your marriage so that you can build unity together. Fairness and support for each other are two of those things. So for example, as much as we can, Kate and I take equal responsibility in the raising of our kids, in the cooking and cleaning in our house, and basically anything that we have to get done. We always share equal responsibility. The message that we give to one another is that we're embracing fairness and equality in our marriage. As we get older, that becomes more and more important to us. So, if you grew up in a house that you didn't witness a principle of fairness between your parents, that doesn't mean that you can't learn how to do it. I promise you that if you take the time and you invest in these behaviors now, the returns for your relationship and fulfillment in your relationship will be absolutely amazing.
When couples that I work with come in for counseling, a lot of times it's because there's been an affair, or a lot of times it's because they've become what I call, they've fallen into the roommate situation. So there's a lot of people, you would not believe how many people are living lives where they're really partners, but they're really more roommates than they are lovers, or husband and wife. There's that dynamic has kind of disappeared. So one of the things Zach says is you need to be dating your entire life, and I totally agree with that statement. That means we need to take date nights seriously, and we need to spend time not just with other couples, but we need to spend time alone together. And a lot of couples, when they come in, what women will say to me is that we have lost our sense of us. Now it's him, it's Hina. But where we, if you imagine two circles, they touch when they meet, and then they slowly intertwine, and then there's that space in the middle where they're interconnected, and that's where a strong sense of us. And then as life goes along, they don't talk as much, they don't share as much, and the next thing you know, they're not even touching anymore. They're separate. And so the only way to avoid that is to have times of quality time together, and quality conversation. Conversation that goes deeper than the weather or how the kids did in the ball games, but conversations about how you are doing in your relationship as a couple. The other thing I can't stress enough, and this is for the guys mainly, is the importance of continually telling our wives how important they are, affirming their beauty, recognizing their input into all the things they do in the family, and for wives to be doing the same for their husbands.
After working with couples from all different types of backgrounds, one of the prevailing needs of importance for couples that stands out more and more as they get older is the ability to connect with one another. Have you ever heard the phrase, you're either growing or you're dying? Well, isn't that the truth? In your relationship, when you're connecting, you're growing. And when you're not, it feels like you're dying. One of the best ways we've ever come across to helping point couples in the right direction, to helping them meet each other's needs, is through the 5 love languages. The 5 love languages is a book that was written by Dr. Gary Chapman. In his book, Dr. Chapman explains how important it is for couples to be able to understand how each of them gives and receives love. The more that a couple is aware of these two things, the more fulfilling and happy their relationship will be. Everyone in the world has what Dr. Chapman describes as a primary love language for both receiving love and giving love. What a couple needs to understand is that when they aren't meeting the primary love language of their spouse may not be as fulfilled in their relationship as they could be. Dr. Chapman uses the analogy of a gas tank for a car. The more that a couple can fill up each other's love tank, the longer you can go in life, the better you feel about your relationship, and the more confident you feel about one another. This is a much better way to go through life and in your relationship than running on fumes or possibly running out of gas. The 5 love languages of people are: number 1, words of affirmation; number 2, acts of service; number 3, physical touch or affection; number 4, quality time; and number 5, gifts. If you're looking for a great way to learn how to meet or exceed your partner's needs to create the relationship you've always wanted, we'd suggest looking more into Dr. Chapman's book. After the video, we provided a link to his website describing each of the 5 love languages in detail and also access to getting his book. And just so you know, we don't receive anything for recommending Dr. Chapman's book. We just strongly endorse it. When Kate and I first started dating, Kate surprised me one time with purchasing this book for us to go through. Going through it to this day has been one of the greatest things that we've ever done for our relationship, because now we have greater insight and understanding into what makes the other person tick and how to meet each other's needs. My recommendation is to spend a few minutes after the video to take a look at the 5 love languages. If you do, I promise you won't be disappointed.
And so what I'm saying is, it doesn't come as naturally to men as to women to do that affirming, to do "you're beautiful," but we can do it. I mean, women always point out to me, he was terrific about that when we were dating. He was the best listener I'd ever been with. He was always telling me how pretty I was. He was always doing this. And now we've been married 3 years, and I never hear it. And her self-esteem is just... Realize that there are times where they say marriage is hard work, and it is, in the sense that there are times when you're not going to agree. And that's when you need to be able to have those difficult discussions. There are going to be times when you love each other, but you don't like each other very much. And in those times, it's important to understand that marriage will have its up times and its low times, but to hang in there during those low times and to not get involved with someone else because you're in a low time.
Each year, we want you to make your anniversary a really big deal. Not just a day where you might get each other a gift or go out to eat. We want you to make it a tradition to make your anniversary a day where you go in depth about talking about the last year and everything that happened in it. What were the good times? What was really tough? What was surprising, and what goals or dreams do you have for the coming year? To help you do this, we provide you an anniversary questionnaire via our website that you can go through to help you get those discussions going. Make each anniversary another great memory and a great moment to reconnect and to remind each other of why you fell in love in the first place.